My guest today is Donicienne Piper, an executive assistant, mental health first aid instructor, mindfulness teacher, and wonderful human being. Donicienne talks about her own experience relating to race, identity, and discrimination, her passionate and emotional account around how she struggled to accept her authentic self because others had made her feel so different. It really is an empowering, inspiring episode that will relate to so many people, one definitely not to be missed. Donicienne,
hi.
Welcome and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
It's lovely to have you. Donicienne, can you do me a favour and introduce yourself? But when I say introduce yourself, could you maybe give the listeners more of an insight as to who you are from a personal, professional and emotional perspective, please?
What a question. Probably easier to start with professionally.
Okay.
Obviously, I'm your executive assistant.
You are!
And business support manager for the company. So supporting yourself and our amazing senior leadership team and the wider business. I've been in operations now for probably over 15 years. So that's kind of my background, and I love what I do. Personally and emotionally kind of go together, to be honest. I'm a wife, I'm a soon-to-be mom. I'm not from England, so I was born and raised in the States. I'm mixed race. My dad was African American, my mom's white. And yeah, I just have been on a journey emotionally kind of over the last few years. And I think that emotionally now I'm sensitive, I'm caring, I'm very pragmatic, and I have a lot of self-awareness that I didn't really have before. And I think that's because I've invested a lot in my own personal development over the years, and I've been on that journey of trying to understand how my life experiences, things I have been through, things I've experienced, things that I've witnessed, how they've kind of shaped me as a person. And ultimately, I'm grateful for these experiences, even though they haven't all been positive, to kind of shape who I am, and learning how they've affected me, but also how I could use that to kind of better myself and also help others who have maybe experienced other things, which is why I was really interested to be part of this and have this discussion with you today.
Amazing, amazing. Talk to me a bit more about that then, because obviously I know you,
Yeah.
which is lucky me. But you've kind of touched upon that you were originally from the States, and obviously you're now in the UK, and that you're going on this kind of journey emotionally.
Yeah.
I guess ongoing journey, right?
Absolutely.
In terms of identity and emotion and that sort of things. But talk to me about, I guess, the background side of things of the States, and sort of, because I'm intrigued just to understand a bit more about the person, who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm probably going to dive straight into the racial element, kind of the element in the room, elephant in the room for a better word. But I think growing up mixed race has been an interesting experience, and one that I think a lot of people can relate to, whether you're mixed race or not. Maybe you're just foreign, not from here. But I think growing up in the States, I had a similar, while still being different, experience to when I moved to the UK.
Okay.
So I think, growing up from a very young age, as soon as I started school at like 4 or 5 years old, people noticed I was different, I looked different, and it's like being asked all the time from other kids that were the same age as me, like, what are you mixed with?
Wow.
And it made me very confused as a child because I was like, what does that question mean? And I think that carries on with you as you grow up. You start to doubt yourself, you start to doubt your identity. And I definitely found that as I went through life, I was almost having to justify my existence. That's how it felt, feeling like I had to almost give my life story every time I met someone. It's like, oh yeah, my dad's black and my mom's white, and that's why my hair looks like this. And feeling like you don't necessarily fit in with certain groups of people because they view you a certain way.
Yeah.
So I feel like in the States, I was strangely viewed primarily as being white because I was seen mostly with my mom, because my dad worked very hard and he wasn't, around as much. So I was always viewed with my mom. I spoke a certain way. I straightened my hair back then and things like that. So I didn't have a lot of black friends. And then when I moved to England, I felt like I was viewed predominantly as black, like straight away. And it was kind of jarring, like for the first time in my life, even though I did experience exclusion and discrimination in the States, like walking down the high street in town for the first time and actually being like hyper aware of my race and that like I'm the only one who looks like this just walking around in town. And it's been really difficult and something that I still battle with now, because people make assumptions about who you are, your background, why you look a certain way, why you speak a certain way. And I think when you are foreign or just when you're new to any kind of situation, you want to fit in, you want to be accepted. But I realize now, looking back on that, how much I did it for other people rather than doing it for myself, feeling like I needed to speak a certain way, feeling like I had to change my accent because I got fed up of being made fun of for my American accent and things like that. Just really made me kind of hide who I really was and not show up authentically, and just kind of wanted to fit into this mold. What's going to kind of make me shrink and fit in? What's going to avoid the jokes today or being questioned? Like not feeling like I could just have a conversation with somebody about myself and what I do without having that, oh, so where are you from then, coming up, but not in a truly inquisitive way. It felt in an almost like, I noticed that you're not from here or you don't belong here kind of way. And I really struggled with that, but I didn't realize how much it affected me. And I have been on this kind of journey with DEI and things coming into the forefront in life and in businesses, and having conversations with other people who have been through very similar things. Finally, in the last like 2 years or so, it's been like, oh wow, some of these things that I've experienced, like number one, I'm not alone, but also number two, it's not okay.
Absolutely not.
You know, and realizing that it's all right actually to stand up for yourself and be like, no, this is me and this is who I am. I don't have to justify myself to you. I'm just as much of an individual as anybody else. And, you know, you don't have to like me, but I do demand respect.
Absolutely, absolutely. And wow, it's, I can imagine how difficult that must have been though as well. And, you know, we talk a lot in terms of authenticity and showing up, you know, the person that you are and having a voice and being heard. But it sounds like there's aspects of obviously the past where you felt like your voice was silenced to a point. So how did you, I guess, the big question is, how do you cope with that? You know, what were, or did you have coping mechanisms sort of, I say back then, what are those changes?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I was younger, I'd say I didn't cope very well.
Yeah.
And the way I dealt with things was just to accept it. Really basic things like, my name is Jenna Sien.
Yeah.
And people would always call me Donna from a very young age. They wouldn't take the time or the effort to learn how to say my name. It was too difficult, therefore they would just call me Donna. They wouldn't ask me if it's okay, they would just decide that this is what they were going to call me. And I never liked it. I was always proud of my name. My parents chose my name is a French name. My mom was very proud of my name, and she would get annoyed on my behalf if people would call me Donna. But I didn't have the confidence as a child to say, no, I don't want to be called that. So I just kind of tolerated it and tolerated it and tolerated it. And even some of my closest friends, to be honest, still to this day from back home, still call me Donna.
No!
Which is absolutely ridiculous. But when I left California and I moved to England, there was a part of me that was like, this is an opportunity for me to have a fresh start. And actually, nobody knows me over there, and I want to be called my name.
Yes.
And so, you know, I've made a conscious effort, and I do correct people now. But it's taken a while to get there, because you do kind of get conditioned to just accommodate other people. And I've only realized recently that that's ridiculous, because you're denying yourself of who you are for the benefit of someone else.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, if you can pronounce the word jalapeno, you know, you can learn to say my name. And but it's having the courage to go, actually, this is how my name's pronounced and I'd prefer for you to call me this, you know, or even having the confidence. Sometimes people are polite enough to be like, oh, do you have something that you like to be called for short? And it's like, actually, no.
No.
And that's okay. But when I
course.
was younger, I didn't cope with that at all. And I would just kind of stew in it and be really angry. But God forbid, I would never actually bring it up. So that's definitely a journey I've been on in terms of standing up for myself and being like, no, this is who I am. This is my name. I'm proud of my name.
Absolutely.
You know, and not tolerating any less. It's a basic courtesy, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's, you know, you're probably not alone in terms of your experiences and what you've encountered and what you've gone through. So immediately I'm sort of thinking, if someone's listening now thinking, my God, like that's how I feel right now, here today, that's how I feel. And I feel like my voice is silenced and I feel that I can't speak up for myself. Whilst I fully appreciate it is an ongoing journey and it's not one that just ends, and it is, you know, it's something that you grow with confidence and you build on that ability to own who you are and to love who you are and your identity. Was there a turning point or a light bulb moment or just anything, an event that happened that you kind of sat up and thought, no, this is, you know, this has to stop? Can you recall a moment?
For my name specifically, funnily enough, it was probably about maybe 5 or 6 years ago at a previous job, a friend of mine, somebody, and I had been working at this company for years, I can't remember who it was, a director in the business, said my name, pronounced it incorrectly as he always had.
Yeah.
And my friend actually in the middle of the meeting said, you know, her name is Donatien, right? And I felt mortified at the time because I'm like, oh my gosh. But at the same time, I was like, this person is choosing to stand up for me. Why am I not comfortable standing up for myself? Because it's not an unusual thing to actually just want your name to be pronounced correctly.
Yeah.
So that definitely was a turning point for me. And it gave me the confidence after I got over being a bit embarrassed of being like, well, no, actually, I should have done this years ago. I could have corrected them myself, but I was scared to do that.
Yeah, but it's interesting because the name is almost like the catalyst, isn't it? Because it is your identity, it is who you are. You like to be addressed by your name, but I guess that feeds into the history in terms of the fear of speaking out or saying the wrong thing or not fitting in. And the reality is, we are perfect just the way we are, but that fear of judgment or that fear of somebody calling you out on something prevented you from having a voice.
Yeah, and even professionally, like I've had experiences where I know I've been prejudged just because I have a foreign name. You know, I haven't had callbacks from jobs because I've got a foreign name before they even speak to me. Or when they do speak to me, it'll be like, oh, your English is very good. And it's like, well, that's because I was born and raised in the States, which you've made an assumption just because I have a foreign name.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, comments like that can be really hard to swallow. And you do have to pick your battles sometimes because, again, it comes back to, it gets exhausting having to explain your life story. It's like, you've seen my CV, you obviously think I'm qualified.
Absolutely.
Why are you making these kinds of assumptions? You know, it seeps into every little area of your life, and if you're not careful, it can really knock your confidence, but you don't realize that it's happening at the time.
Talk to me about the workplace then, because you've mentioned it a couple of times as well, and as an employer who cares about having an inclusive workforce environment, positive culture, you know, diversity, inclusion, you know, these are all aspects that all employers should have at the forefront of their mind. So your experience, particularly in the UK, because as you say, it differed from the States. So what's your experience been, generally speaking, in the workplace when we're looking at, that inclusion element and you feeling comfortable to show up as you are?
It's lacked in the past. I feel like in the last few years, again, as the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion has come to the forefront, more and more businesses are aware of it and trying to implement things, it has gotten better. In my experience, having employee network groups, or like we have here with the People and Community Forum, where people can come together and have a safe space to discuss these issues, really, really help. But previously, it could be very lonely.
Yeah.
It could be very lonely to, pretty much, I can't say for here because we are a very diverse business, but there have been many businesses I've worked for where I walk in on the first day and it's like, I'm the only person who's not white in this office.
Yeah.
And while there's absolutely no problem with that, it is how you feel. You feel like you immediately stand out, that it's immediately obvious that you're different. And when you are the only one, it can be really difficult. And sometimes people end up having awkward conversations with you because of that difference.
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily doing it to be rude, but I've had people say to me, oh, but you're of Afro-Caribbean descent, aren't you? And it's like, no, I'm not. And it's like, oh, I'm sure you told me that before. And it's like, no, I wouldn't have done that because I'm not. But you've made an assumption based on how I look. So I think advice to businesses out there is to raise awareness, but have the conversations, but in the right way.
Yeah.
But also for people that are minorities in businesses, it is also to kind of give some grace. People are going to make mistakes, but I think you can tell when people's hearts are in the right place or not, and when they're having a conversation out of genuine interest and they may just stumble and say the wrong thing. And it, as much as it's exhausting sometimes to have to do that education piece, sometimes it's for the best.
Yeah, and look, education I think is critical, isn't it? And actually, for a business to sort of stand up and say, no, we're not perfect, and no, we don't have all the answers, and yes, we're on a journey, and yes, we need to improve, is a really positive place to be. But I think actually you mentioned like the people in community forums and things like that, and I guess, is it even more important that the right people are represented in these rooms? Because I guess equally you could have that kind of token group that is like very senior management sat there around a table talking about the ways in which they want to improve the business. But if you don't have the right voices at the table, how are you supposed to improve?
You're absolutely right with that. And I think that some businesses get this wrong.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for some businesses, it is a tick box exercise, which is absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
But it is important to have the right people in the group. I think it's the right thing to have it open to all people and all employees in your business, but absolutely question their motivations. And I know I might sound like I'm contradicting myself because education is a key factor, but also you need to appreciate that not all employees are on the same journey that you as a business owner might visualize for your business. Not everybody's going to care. Not everybody's going to recognize that there is an issue there. So, you need to signpost people and make them aware of how they might be coming across, what should and shouldn't be said, what we as a business will and will not tolerate. But at the end of the day, people need to be on their own journey, and they need to find their own reasons for digging deep into why they are and challenging their own thoughts and how they do things differently. But I think going back to the groups piece, when you've got people who are genuinely passionate about diversity and inclusion, whether it be about it as a whole or certain aspects that might be close to their heart, that's where you're going to get the most out of these groups, because they can speak passionately to the business about why this matters and potentially inspire people that didn't realize that there was a problem.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's interesting as well, isn't it? Because I think role models, I think, plays a part for all of us, okay? It's International Women's Day tomorrow.
Yes.
I think we're on a journey on that side of things as well.
We
the pace of change is not where it needs to be. And I think actually, whatever that level of diversity, adversity, challenge, change looks like, I think people do seek outwards. They look outwards for role models, because actually it's almost that they're waiting for permission to speak up and have that voice. And without that permission, it's quite lonely. It's quite isolating, whatever that may be. So is there anything else that you have done over the years or are doing now in terms of actually, I guess, seeking that sort of that help, external help element to sort of give you that confidence to grow?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've been in therapy for a few years now, which has absolutely transformed my life. It's also speaking to not just like-minded people, but also recognizing other people and their struggles.
Yes.
That helps me, having these conversations with people, whether it be about racism, performance, just really awkward things that we all go through in life. Like, I get a lot of joy and satisfaction out of having those conversations with other people sharing my experiences and how they might translate into their lives and how they can do things differently.
Yeah.
I think, you know, that peer support, whether it be in work or whether it be friendships or whether it even be family, I think that's really key to your own healing, how you approach life, and ultimately how you cope.
And healing is, I think, is the key, isn't it? I think
Yeah.
it's actually, you've got to face forward. We've got to, I guess, inspire, you know, that next generation, our children. You know,
Yeah.
I hope you don't mind me saying, you're pregnant now,
Yeah.
and you're on the beginning of that journey, which
Yeah.
is amazing. So I guess from a almost a new parent perspective, and you look at that next generation, you look that you're going to bring a child into this world. Is there anything, if you were to compare and contrast, and you kind of look at your childhood and look, we've all had different journeys, and we can't change our path or the way in which we were educated. But have you considered maybe how that would look now, sort of for you, and how you might then educate your child?
Definitely. I think it's important to be aware of your differences.
Yes.
And aware that you can't control other people. And I think that's what I'd want to instill in my child, is be confident in yourself.
100%.
But appreciate that not everybody is going to see the world as you do. Not everybody's going to see you the way you do or your family does. And that's okay.
Yes.
And I think, you know, my parents were fantastic with me, but we didn't have those conversations, perhaps because we didn't have to.
Yeah.
Whereas now I feel like it's a bit more prevalent, and you
Yeah.
know, children are getting judged, children are coming home from school with absolutely horrific experiences, and you know, and that's not okay. But I think, you know, I worry about bringing my child into the world that we're living in today. But I think it's so important for them to have that message that it's okay to be different, it's okay to live life by your own terms, and to be proud of who you are. And if people aren't for you, then that's okay. You know, then they can go on their merry way and you can live your life.
But it is so. It's a celebration of being different, and I think it's flipping it, isn't it? It's what caused the anxiety and the stress, and in a lot of cases depression, is actually feeling fundamentally different to others and feeling singled out, and actually
pressure to conform.
But seeing the beauty in being different and I guess wearing that with pride
Absolutely.
is something that I guess is unraveling a lot of stuff that was preconditioned, right, in terms of sort of years of growing up. But I think the investment of that self-investment, that self-love, becomes like even more critical, doesn't it?
Oh gosh, yeah.
In that process, harder. It's harder to actually invest in yourself than it is to invest in others. We all know that.
Gosh,
but it's almost like a non-negotiable journey that you have to go on to start actually seeing the beauty in yourself, right?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And you know, I think people want to, you know, it's going back to what I said at the beginning, you know, they want to be liked by other people. And I, particularly when you're young, I totally get it, but you need to find your voice and you need to be empowered by your abilities and your individuality, and recognize that that's something to be celebrated. And I'm happy that differences are celebrated a lot more now. There will always be pockets of people that don't see it that way. But yeah, I'm grateful that it's more accepted now to be different rather than a measure of judgment.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Donacien, you picked two cards before we come on air, so the vulnerability cards. So I'm going to read you one of those.
Okay.
The question was, if you were able to transport back in time to offer yourself game-changing advice, when would it be and what would you say?
I think I'd go back to my 5-year-old self starting school and just say, be yourself and stand up for yourself. That you are unique and you matter, and people don't have the right to question you. I think that's kind of a thing throughout my life that I just kind of accepted, you know, always having to justify myself, why I was the way I was, why I looked the way I looked, why I spoke the way I spoke. And it's like, that's, you don't have to apologize for being you. You don't have to apologize for your background. You don't have to apologize for where you're from, what your life experiences are. Whatever it is that got you here has molded you into the person that you are today. And whatever that looks like, be proud, because it's all about how you move forward. from that.
100%. I love that. And you know, going back to being a parent, and I've got a nearly 9-year-old girl, and mirror work is fundamentally one of the most important things that I do with her. And for some people, they find it quite airy-fairy. For
Not at
me,
all.
as you rightly point out, that 5-year-old self, you can pinpoint now at this stage in your life that those insecurities and that fear and that anxiety started at such a young age.
And they don't go away.
They don't go away. No. And we had a conversation off air today where we record sort of moments in our childhood that scarred us.
Yeah.
You know, literally you can remember word for word
Yeah.
the conversations or the comments or the way that made you feel, and you don't lose that. And the mirror work that I do with her, I'll get her to stand there, I'll go, right, Florence, 5 things you love about yourself. Doesn't have to be physical. 5 things, go, go, go. And you know, it's and it doesn't matter how long it takes her. She has to find them, and she has to look at herself and love herself. And I think, pointing out that actually you'd go all the way back to that 5-year-old you, it just shows sort of actually how early on these feelings and these experiences are embedded, and how much it impacts us in later life as well.
100%. But it's also important to acknowledge how far you've come.
Oh gosh,
You know, my husband doesn't do mirror work with me, but when I'm really down, because I do struggle with my mental health, you know, he'll say to me, right, 3 things that have improved in the last year that you never thought was amazing, like would ever happen, you know, and it's just reminding yourself of, right, I was worried about that. I was really anxious about that, but look what I achieved. I did it anyway.
Yes.
I did it afraid. And that's okay.
I conquered that. I've achieved that, and wow, what an achievement as well. But you're right. It's the. I think the ghosts of the past and those demons can be very consuming.
Yeah.
So it's about not denying that happened, but actually recognizing that we have a choice to face forward. And a bit like yourself today, you know, you can face forward now. You can inspire others. You can turn your experience into education and sort of give others permission and encouragement to know that actually it's okay to show up as yourself, and your feelings are way more important than somebody else's that's
100%.
passing judgment on you. So amazing, fabulous. Love that answer. Okay, who has been the most inspiring influence in your life and why? And has this inevitably impacted how you show up?
It's going to have to be my mom.
Okay.
Who sadly passed away in 2022, but she was genuinely my best friend, and I learned so much from her experiences. And you know, she was born in Morocco, you know, during a war, and experienced a lot of pain and discrimination, and then immigrating back to France and things like that. So while we didn't have the exact same life experiences, she could really relate to some of the things I experienced from a racial perspective when I was really young. And I think what I learned from her and I took away was that she never lost hope. She never lost her positivity, and she always had a genuine joy for life. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, I struggle with my mental health. I'm not 100% there yet, but she really instilled that never lose hope.
Yeah.
And I think that's kept me going throughout my life, because if you don't have hope, you don't have anything. You've got no reason, you know, to get out of bed.
Yeah.
And, you know, I just think you've got to have that passion for life. You've got to persevere. You've got to keep believing that there's always something bigger and better out there for you, that things will get better. And it, again, goes back to that acknowledging where you came from, how far you've come, how much you've achieved. If I hadn't taken the time to pause and reflect back on that, I probably wouldn't be sat here with you today.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so I'm very grateful to her that despite so many horrific things that she'd been through in her life, she was like, you've just got to always find the good, even when it's bad. Because there's always something, there's always a nugget.
There is. It's finding the gift, isn't it? And
100%.
I think going back to the role model piece, you know, how amazing that you had such an inspiring woman in your life in the form of your mother, and was able to take inspiration from her in terms of how you show up. And that's incredible, because not everyone has that, you know, and I also recognize that. So it's incredible that you had that, and no doubt, you know, part of your mum is here with you. Do you know what I mean? I think in terms of, we don't realize, you know, be it negative or positive, how much our family and those around us can influence you know, who we are as a person, which is absolutely incredible.
100%.
Amazing, thank you. So before we finish, Donici, and I'm intrigued to know,
if I sort of reflect and summarize in terms of, you know, your journey, and I really do appreciate your honesty, because I genuinely know there'll be so many people sat there feeling this will resonate, but not more than that. I think actually, you know, we don't speak up enough about this. We don't talk about this enough. And, you know, there are subjects in which people shy away from in fear of being different, the exact reason that we talked about earlier on. So I guess if you've got any final thoughts, words of hope or words of wisdom that you could kind of leave the listeners with today, what would it be?
I think it would be, it sounds cliche, but don't let anyone dull your sparkle. If you're hiding away, if you're not being your authentic self, just pause and ask yourself why that is. Is that a discomfort within yourself, or are you hiding away because of other people that are making you feel less? It's okay to stand up for yourself. It's okay to say no. It's okay to ask for what you want. It's okay to be unapologetically you.
Yes.
I think more people would just be so much happier in life if they would actually be open and honest with themselves about what they want, and be less concerned about what other people want or what they think other people's expectations of them
100%.
are, because you might be surprised, you might be making assumptions yourself.
Yeah, and I think you finished on a really valid point then, in terms of what you think other people want. You know, it's what, you know, it's not about what you think you should do in society. It's not about what other people want for you know, for you, from you, whatever that may be. It's about being authentically you with no apologies. It's about showing up as you are. It's about learning to love that person, because the rest is just noise. And,
Absolutely.
And actually, you know what, you're still on your journey.
Absolutely.
But my goodness, what an inspiring woman you are.
Thank you.
And your unborn child will be very, very proud of you as well, and what a fabulous mummy you're going to be. So thank you for joining today.
Thank you.
It's been a real privilege to talk to you. And as I say, 100%, your story and your advice will be hugely valuable to others. So thank you so much.
Thank you.